She stood in the rain, her gun still trembling. The man who killed her sister begging for mercy at her feet. Behind her, Gabriel Donatelli, the Mafia king torn between vengeance and love, watched with eyes that had seen too much blood, too much loss. In that moment she had to decide. Justice or forgiveness, love or ruin. Because sometimes redemption isn't found in light. It's born from the darkest choices we dare to make. Before we begin, if you believe that even broken hearts can find redemption, make sure to subscribe. It's free and helps us share more stories from Desire Tales. I hadn't set foot in Chicago for 3 years. Standing outside the cold stone arches of St. Augustine Cathedral, I watched the mourners stream through the heavy oak doors, their black coats rippling in the February wind. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. It wasn't hard to count. That was how long it had been since the fight that severed me from my twin sister. The cab driver had asked if I was okay when I'd given him the address. I must have looked as hollow as I felt. In his rearview mirror, I'd seen a stranger staring back at me, blonde hair pulled too tight, blue eyes rimmed red from crying through the flight from Prague, 28 years old. And I had just lost the only person who shared my face, my DNA, half my childhood memories. Natalie was dead. They said it was a car accident. The words in the email from her neighbor had been short, clinical, detached. Your sister passed away in a single-vehicle collision on Lakeshore Drive. Funeral services Friday at 2. I should have come sooner. I should have answered her calls 6 months ago. I should have forgiven her for falling in love with a man whose world I couldn't stomach. But pride is a slow poison, and I had let it eat through every chance to make things right. Now I would never get to tell her I was sorry. The cathedral steps were crowded with people I didn't recognize, men in expensive suits, women in designer black dresses. The polished kind of crowd that didn't belong at the funeral of a girl who once stole my clothes and ate cereal straight from the box. These weren't Natalie's people. At least, not the Natalie I remembered. I pushed through the entrance, late because of a delayed connecting flight. The service had already begun. The priest's voice echoed through the vaulted chamber, but the words dissolved into a blur. My eyes found the casket draped in white lilies, her lilies, because she had always loved their clean, fragile scent. My mirror image lay still inside. Then the air shifted, heads turned point one by one. The mourners twisted in their pews, gasps rising like a wave. A woman clutched her chest. An older man rose abruptly, his chair scraping against marble. They were looking at me as if I were a ghost. Of course they were, because to them, I was Natalie. That we had the same bone structure, the same wheat blonde hair, the same blue eyes, but what they couldn't see were the differences. She had been fire where I was ice, impulsive where I was careful. Our parents had trained us, both taught us to observe, to survive, but Natalie had wanted freedom from that legacy. I had embraced it. Natalie? Someone whispered her name like a prayer. I kept walking, my heels clicking against the stone aisle, the sound echoing like gunfire in a chapel. Every pair of eyes followed me. I didn't belong here, that much was clear. But I needed to see her one last time, to say goodbye to the girl who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms when we were six. My gaze swept the front rows, searching for a familiar face. And then I saw him. He sat in the first pew, broad shoulders held rigid beneath a black suit that probably cost more than my rent for a year. Dark hair, immaculately styled. A face cut from stone, Roman, proud and dangerous. Even from behind, he radiated power. Gabriel Donatelli. He had to be the man Natalie had chosen over me. He turned and the world stopped. Devastation carved into every line of his face shifted into something else. Shock, desperate hope, disbelief. His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. He rose unsteadily, reaching toward me with a trembling hand. Natalie! His voice broke on her name, raw, desperate. How? How is this possible? The pain in his voice gutted me. He thought she was alive. He thought I was her, standing here while she lay in that casket. Everyone in the cathedral held their breath. I stopped 3 feet from him, close enough to see the tears in his eyes, close enough to feel the weight of his hope. I'm not Natalie, I said quietly, forcing steadiness into my voice. I'm her sister. Her twin sister. The words hit him like a physical blow. His hand froze midair, then lowered slowly. The desperate hope in his eyes died, replaced by crushing realization, then confusion, then something colder. Sister, he repeated, testing the word like it was foreign. Twin sister. Identical, I confirmed. My name is Lauren Cooper. Gabriel's jaw clenched. She never mentioned you. She said her parents were dead. No siblings. No family. Whispers rippled through the pew, shock giving way to curiosity, curiosity to suspicion. I could feel their eyes piercing through me. We had a falling out, I managed, standing straighter despite the weight of the stairs. 3 years ago. Gabriel's dark gaze searched mine, looking for traces of Natalie and finding someone else entirely. He blinked, and when his eyes opened again, the grief was shuttered behind iron control. "We need to talk after," he said at last, his tone quiet but commanding. "I came for my sister's funeral. After." He didn't wait for a reply. Pulling a small card from his jacket pocket, he pressed it into my hand. 1 hour. The address is on there. Come alone or don't come at all. He turned back toward the casket before I could respond, his movements precise, controlled, but I'd seen his hands. They were shaking. I forced myself toward a pew, my legs unsteady. The elderly woman beside me crossed herself and muttered something in Italian. I caught fragments of whispered sentences behind me. Does he know about the twin? She hid this for years. Look at his faces, destroyed all over again. The priest's voice droned on, but all I could feel was the cold throb of truth that I had come for closure instead. I had torn open every wound in this church. The service ended in a blur. People filed out of the cathedral, their whispers like wind slipping through marble arches. I stayed seated, frozen in place as the workers began to prepare the casket for transport. My hands trembled in my lap. Every instinct I had screamed that something was wrong. Natalie was a careful driver, meticulous to the point of obsession. Our father had drilled vehicle safety into us until it became second nature. A single vehicle collision on a straight stretch of Lakeshore Drive? It didn't add up. "Miss Cooper." I turned. An older man stood in the aisle, silver hair, dark suit, movements precise and deliberate. His tone was respectful, but his eyes carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. "I'm Franco Raldi," he said. "I handle security for the Donatelli family." The words landed like a lead weight. Security. Donatelli family. The phrase meant one thing in Chicago. Mafia. He must have read the alarm in my expression, because his voice softened, almost courteous. "Mr. Donatelli would like to speak with you privately. Away from here. Please, it's for your own safety." "My safety," I repeated, disbelief edging my voice. He inclined his head slightly. "You look exactly like a woman who was murdered 3 days ago. There are people in this church who might not immediately understand that you're not her. Some might see you as a threat, others as an opportunity." He paused, weighing his next words. "Please come with me. Mr. Donatelli is waiting." I looked back at Natalie's casket one last time, the white lilies, the polished wood, the unbearable stillness, and then down at the card Gabriel had given me. No name, no business, just an address written in sharp black ink. The kind of place that didn't advertise. "I'll follow you in my own car," I said finally, forcing control back into my voice. "I'm not getting into a vehicle with people I don't know." Franco's mouth twitched, a ghost of approval. "Smart. The address is the reception venue. Many people will be there. You won't be alone with him." He waited as I rose, then guided me discreetly toward a side exit. The heavy cathedral doors closed behind us, sealing away the echoes of grief. Outside, Chicago's air was sharp with winter and exhaust. The city felt too alive for death to exist here. I followed Franco's car through the downtown streets until we reached a private reception hall, white stone, valet attendants, and too many tinted windows. Inside, crystal chandeliers scattered fractured light over marble floors. Waitstaff moved silently between clusters of mourners, offering champagne and whispered condolences. I took a glass I had no intention of drinking and positioned myself near a window. From here, I could see black cars lined along the curb, drivers standing at attention, alert, disciplined. This wasn't just wealth on display. This was power. People spoke in low tones, shifting between English and Italian. They didn't notice me at first or pretended not to, but I listened anyway. My father had always said, "Listen first, act later." "You look just like her," a woman's voice said softly behind me. I turned. She was around Natalie's age, with kind eyes and a tissue clutched in one trembling hand. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I'm Rachel. I worked with Natalie at the gallery downtown." "Gallery?" I echoed. She never mentioned working at one. "She started about 8 months ago," Rachel said, her voice fragile. "Photography exhibits mostly. She was talented. She talked about you once. She did. The words scraped out of me raw. Rachel nodded. Not in detail, she was private. But I could tell it hurt her whatever happened between you two. She missed you. The air thickened with regret. I wanted to say anything, but Rachel's gaze darted nervously toward the far side of the room. She was scared the last few weeks, she whispered. Jumpy. Kept checking her phone, looking over her shoulder. Did you tell the police? Rachel gave a humorless laugh. The police? Gabriel Donatelli owns half this city. The police don't ask questions he doesn't want answered. Before I could reply, the mood in the room shifted. Conversations quieted. Heads turned toward the entrance. Gabriel Donatelli had arrived, and with him, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. He moved through the crowd like a shadow slicing through water. People parted instinctively, their fear hidden behind polite smiles. Franco followed 2 steps behind. Then Gabriel's gaze found mine. A subtle nod toward a door on the far side. I should go, Rachel murmured quickly. Be careful, okay? And just like that, she vanished into the crowd. I set down my untouched glass and crossed the room, aware of every pair of eyes tracking me. Being Natalie's ghost was exhausting. The door led to a smaller room, intimate, windowless, quiet. Gabriel stood with his back to me, staring at a painting. Franco closed the door behind me and remained by it, a silent sentry. Close the door, Gabriel said without turning. I did. The click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. You wanted to talk, I said, keeping my tone even. So talk. He turned slowly. The grief I'd seen in the cathedral had cooled into control, like molten metal hardened to steel. You said you believe Natalie was murdered. Why? Because she was an excellent driver who maintained her car obsessively, I answered. Because single-car accidents on straight roads don't happen without cause. And because I heard your people talking about Albanians and sabotage during the service. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. You speak Italian. Among other languages. I'm a translator. It's how I make a living. Impressive. His tone was unreadable. Then maybe you can tell me what the Albanians have to do with this. I was hoping you'd tell me. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He moved to a sideboard, poured amber liquid into 2 glasses and offered me one. I shook my head. The Kosovar organization, he said finally, taking a sip. They've been trying to move into Chicago territory for 2 years. Natalie became a target because she was close to me. You mean because she was your fiancée? Yes. He set the glass down with deliberate care. She knew the risks. I warned her what this life meant. And she stayed anyway. Bitterness rose in my throat. That sounds like Natalie. Always running toward the fire. She was brave. His eyes softened just for a moment. She was reckless. There's a difference. Gabriel studied me, the intensity of his gaze unsettling. You are nothing like her. Finally, I murmured. Something we agree on. When he spoke again, his voice dropped low. We need to talk after. I came for my sister's funeral. And now you're part of her story, whether you like it or not. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a card, and handed it to me again. Same one, same words written in dark ink. 1 hour, he said. Come alone or don't come at all. He turned away, ending the conversation. Franco opened the door for me, and I stepped back into the golden chaos of the reception hall. The chandeliers still glittered. The guests still murmured polite condolences, but everything had changed. For the first time since my plane had landed, I realized something chilling. My sister hadn't died in an accident, she had been murdered, and Gabriel Donatelli, the man she had loved, might be the only one who could tell me why. The drive to Gabriel's address took less than 10 minutes, but every passing block felt like another boundary I shouldn't cross. Chicago gleamed outside the window, steel, glass, and rain-slick streets reflecting the city's lights. I shouldn't have come. Yet every instinct told me the answers I wanted waited on the other side of this meeting. The reception hall Gabriel had chosen wasn't just privateer, it was fortified. Men in dark suits flanked the entrances, their movements efficient, their attention sharp. Inside, the chatter was muted, the tension palpable. Franco met me at the door, nodding once in greeting. Miss Cooper, he said quietly, this way. I followed him through a narrow corridor to a small side room. The walls were paneled in dark wood. The air smelled faintly of whiskey and old secrets. Gabriel stood near the window, his jacket removed, shirt sleeves rolled back, revealing the controlled power in his arms. The grief from the funeral had hardened into something colder: focus, purpose, command. He didn't turn when I entered, but his voice filled the room like smoke. Close the door. I obeyed, the latch clicking softly behind me. Franco took a position by the entrance, silent as a shadow. Gabriel turned at last. His gaze was steady, assessing. You said at the church you believed Natalie's death wasn't an accident. Explain. I met his eyes, forcing myself not to shrink beneath that intensity. Because she was an excellent driver. Because single-vehicle collisions on straight roads don't happen without reason. And because I heard your men mention Albanians and sabotage during the service. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his expression: surprise, maybe respect. You speak Italian. Among other languages, I replied evenly. I'm a translator. It's how I make a living. His brow lifted slightly. That explains a few things. Like what? He stepped closer. Like how you read a room before you enter it. How you notice every exit. How you listen instead of speaking. Those are survival skills, not social graces. Who taught you? I hesitated, the answer caught between habit and truth. Our parents, I said finally. Before they died. And what were your parents? His tone was deceptively mild, but his eyes didn't waver. Careful. For the first time, a hint of amusement ghosted across his lips. I could have you investigated. Find out everything about you in 24 hours. Then why ask? He held my gaze. Because I want to hear it from you. The silence stretched taut between us. I felt my pulse in my throat. Finally, I exhaled. They fled Russia in the 90s, I said quietly. Started over here. Taught us to protect ourselves. To leave no traces. To survive in a world that doesn't forgive mistakes. Natalie rejected it. I embraced it. Understanding flickered in his eyes. That's why she couldn't find you. She tried. Hired investigators. They found nothing. Because I didn't want to be found. The admission burned on my tongue. I was angry. Stubborn. And instead of forgiving her, my voice faltered. I lost her. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Then you lost her twice. Once by choice and once by force. The words cut deeper than they should have. I turned away, blinking against tears I refused to shed. Are you trying to hurt me? Or does it come naturally? He sighed, the sound heavy. I'm trying to understand. When I looked back, his expression had softened, stripped of its usual control. Natalie never spoke of you, yet she kept a photograph. Hidden in her jewelry box. 2 blonde girls, 6 maybe, holding hands. I found it after she died. My breath caught. Halloween, I whispered. Matching princess costumes. Our mother took that picture a week before everything changed. She kept that. She did, Gabriel said quietly. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel his presence but not his touch. Which tells me that whatever happened between you, she never stopped loving you. I swallowed hard. I didn't come here for absolution. I came for the truth. Then help me find who killed her. I met his eyes. You already know. The Albanians. I know who gave the order, he said. I don't know who executed it. Who tampered with her car. Who watched her die. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I need to know before I can act. Act? I echoed. You mean retaliate? I mean justice. Your version of justice involves body bags and unmarked graves, I said, my tone sharper than intended. He didn't deny it. Does that bother you? It should have. Normal people were bothered by vengeance. By violence. But I wasn't normal and neither was my family. No, I admitted quietly. It doesn't. Something shifted in his expression, then an unspoken acknowledgement, almost respect. Then work with me. Your skills, my resources. We find the truth together. And then what? I asked. I go back to my life and pretend this never happened? If you're smart, yes. I laughed once, the sound brittle. I stopped being smart the moment I got on that plane to Chicago. Before he could respond, Franco's voice cut through the room. Mr. Donatelli, we have a situation. Gabriel's posture changed instantly, grief giving way to command. What kind of situation? Franco's hand tightened around his phone. The kind that followed her here. My stomach dropped. What? Franco crossed to the desk, showing us live security footage on his screen. A black sedan was parked across from my hotel. 2 men sat inside, faces obscured. The timestamp: 10 minutes after I'd checked in that morning. Albanian? Gabriel asked. Most likely. They've been stationary for hours. I forced myself to stay calm. They followed me from the airport. Or they were watching the funeral, Gabriel countered. Waiting to see if anyone unexpected showed up, which you did. So what? They know Natalie had a twin. How does that make me a threat? His gaze darkened. Because you're asking questions. Because you look exactly like the woman they killed. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. You're not going back to that hotel. Excuse me. Franco, take her to the house. North property. Full security detail. I am not going anywhere with you, I snapped. I can handle myself. He turned on me, voice sharp. With what? Sharp words and careful observation? This is not negotiable, Miss Cooper. You involved yourself in this by coming here. Now you're a target. I can protect you, or I can have someone clean up your body when they're finished. Your choice. The brutal honesty should have terrified me. Instead, something inside mesomething fierce and familiar rose to meet it. Fine, I said. But we do this my way. I'm not a prisoner, and I'm not helpless. I help investigate. Or you can explain to the police how you let your dead fiancé's twin sister get murdered under your watch. Gabriel's eyes narrowed, then impossibly smiled at it. Was small, sharp, and utterly dangerous. Natalie never threatened me, he murmured. She would beg, cry, seduce. You hold a knife to my throat and dare me to bleed. Is that a yes? He tilted his head slightly. That's a we'll discuss terms in a secured location. Franco, take her. I'll handle things here and meet you in an hour. Franco moved toward me, professional, polite but firm. I grabbed my purse, squared my shoulders, and followed him out a side door, away from the murmuring crowd. As we walked toward a waiting car, I caught a glimpse through the window. Gabriel stood alone beside the table, staring at nothing. The man who had just threatened me looked broken. His hand was trembling again. I hesitated for half a second, then climbed into the car. The door shut with a soft, final click. I had just agreed to enter the world that had killed my sister, and somehow, I knew there would be no way back. Franco drove in silence. The city lights faded behind us as the car wound its way north, trading steel and glass for trees and open darkness. Every so often, he checked the mirrors, methodical, alert, the movement of a man who expected danger at any moment. 2 black sedans followed at a steady distance. Protection, I assumed. How far is this place? I asked, my voice calm but tight. 20 minutes north of the city, he replied without looking away from the road. Secure location. Mr. Donatelli has several properties. This one is the safest. Safe from what exactly? His jaw flexed. From anyone who might want to hurt you because of who you look like. As I looked like Natalie. Because to some people I was her walking, breathing, haunting the man she'd left behind. The thought hollowed me out. We turned down a private road, the gates sliding open automatically as if recognizing the vehicle. The property emerged from the darkness like something out of a dream, modern architecture married to old-world stone, all sharp lines and silent wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowed softly against the night. The air smelled of pine and cold water. Franco stopped near the entrance. We're here. Men in dark suits appeared from the shadows, 8, maybe more. They nodded as we passed, eyes assessing me but not unkind. The precision of their movements spoke volumes. These weren't bodyguards, they were soldiers. Franco opened my door. Your luggage will be retrieved from the hotel and brought here. For now, let me show you inside. The foyer took my breath away. Marble floors polished like still water. A staircase curving upward in a perfect sweep. Paintings lined the walls. Dark colors, elegant frames. But it was the photographs that stopped me cold. Natalie everywhere. Her smile frozen in glossy prints, her laughter, her life, her arms wrapped around Gabriel in captured moments of intimacy. My throat tightened painfully. Franco noticed. Mr. Donatelli keeps her memory close, he said gently. He has not been the same since she died. They were together how long? I asked. 2 years. She changed him. Made him want to be better. He said it without irony, without fear. There was affection in his tone. Respect. She was light in a dark world, he added quietly, and I I was the shadow of that light, the reminder of what he'd lost. Franco led me upstairs, down a corridor lined with more art and silence. He opened a door at the end. The guest room was larger than my entire apartment in Prague. A king bed, a sitting area, a balcony that overlooked the lake, its surface gleaming under the moonlight. Everything was cream and silver, elegant, impersonal, expensive. You'll be comfortable here. Bathroom through that door. Clothes in the closet if you need them. He paused in the doorway. There are guards outside, but they're for your protection, not to keep you prisoner. Mr. Donatelli will arrive soon. Until then, rest. You're safe here. The door closed softly behind him. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Watchful. I moved automatically, scanning every inch the way my father had taught me. 2 exits. The door and the balcony. The windows were locked but not alarmed. 3rd floor too high to jump, but possible to climb down if necessary. Old habits. Old training. I opened the closet. Clothes hung neatly. All women's dresses, blouses, scarves. I reached out, fingertips brushing soft silk in shades of emerald, ruby, sapphire. Natalie's colors. I had always preferred neutrals, grays and blacks that helped me disappear. Even our wardrobes had reflected who we were. Movement outside caught my eye. I stepped to the window, staying behind the curtain. A car pulled up. Gabriel stepped out, another man beside him. They exchanged a few quiet words before the other man left. Gabriel's body language rigid, contained, spoke of exhaustion barely held in check. Then, as if sensing me, he looked up. Our eyes met through glass and darkness. Even from this distance, the intensity of his gaze reached me. Then he turned and disappeared inside. Minutes later, a soft knock. "Come in," I said. The door opened and the room seemed to shrink around his presence. Gabriel had removed his jacket, loosened his tie. The grief still lingered in the lines of his face, but something harder had taken its place. Control forged through loss. "You settled?" he asked, voice low, roughened by fatigue. "As much as one can be," I replied. "When kidnapped by a mafia boss." His mouth curved faintly. "Rescued," he corrected. "The word is rescued." "Semantics," I murmured as he walked to the window, hands in his pockets, gaze on the dark water below. "This was Natalie's favorite room," he said. "She'd spend hours on that balcony, photographing the lake at different times of day." The words cut deeper than I expected. "You brought me to her room," I said quietly. "It's the safest one," he answered. "Best sightlines, reinforced walls, direct access to security." He hesitated, then turned to face me. "Though I suppose that wasn't the only reason. What was the other?" He studied me. "Maybe I wanted to see if you'd react the same way she did. If you'd stand at that window and see what she saw." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "But you don't. You catalog exits, assess threats, calculate risk. Even in grief, you're a survivor first. Is that a criticism? It's admiration." He crossed to a dresser, opened a drawer, and retrieved a worn leather journal. "I found this after the funeral. Hidden in Natalie's things at the gallery." He handed it to me. My heart clenched as I recognized the handwriting, the looping letters, the way she dotted her I's with tiny dashes instead of dots. I opened it carefully. Pages filled with dates, notes, license plates, names. Men following her. Conversations overheard. My sister had been investigating something. She was tracking them, I said, scanning her notes. Trying to identify who was giving orders, who was making moves. Gabriel's voice hardened. She was tracking the Albanians. I warned her to stay out of it. But she wouldn't listen. She wanted to prove she could survive in my world. "She was trying to help you," I said softly. "To protect you." His eyes darkened. "She was trying to prove something. And it got her killed." I turned a page. Natalie's handwriting had grown shakier, worried, scared. My stomach twisted as I read. "Silvio says he's been acting strange. Taking calls he doesn't want overheard." "Show me," Gabriel said sharply, stepping closer. I pointed to the entry. "She mentioned seeing Silvio meeting with someone. Describes him as Albanian, same accent, same look." They exchanged an envelope. Gabriel's face turned to stone. "Silvio Moretti." His voice dropped to something lethal. "My counselor. I've known him 15 years. Trusted him with everything." Natalie had suspected him. Suspected betrayal. "If she was right," Gabriel said, "then Silvio didn't just pass information. He killed her. He gave them everything they needed." His fury was cold and focused, terrifying in its restraint. "We need proof," I said. "Suspicion isn't enough. Proof can be extracted through torture. That won't hold up anywhere." "Who said anything about courts?" he shot back. "In my world, justice doesn't come from judges. It comes from loyalty and consequences. If Silvio betrayed me, he betrayed her. He'll answer for it permanently." I should have been horrified. Instead, I thought of Natalie, alone, terrified, realizing too late that she'd trusted the wrong man. "Then let's get proof," I said quietly. "And when we do, you can handle it however you see fit." Gabriel studied me, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Understanding. Maybe even respect. He saw the same darkness in me that he carried in himself. Before either of us could speak, a sudden crash shattered the silence, breaking glass. Shouts. Gabriel's gun was in his hand before I could blink. "Stay here. Lock the door." "What's going on?" "Someone just breached the perimeter." The door burst open. Franco, weapon drawn, blood streaking his temple. "Albanians. 3 vehicles. They rammed the gate." Gabriel's face went cold. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Maybe more." Gunfire erupted somewhere below, muffled but close. "Where's the safest place?" I demanded. "Panic room, basement level," Franco answered. "We need to move now." Gabriel grabbed my hand. "Stay behind me. Don't stop for anything." We ran. The hallway was chaos, smoke, alarms, shouting in multiple languages. Gabriel's men were already taking defensive positions. "Cover the stairs," Gabriel ordered. "No one gets past this floor." We descended a back stairwell I hadn't noticed before. The further we went, the louder the sound of battle grew. Then abruptly it faded again, contained to the upper levels. The basement was a different world, concrete walls reinforced with steel, harsh white lights cutting through the gloom. Franco moved to a panel disguised as a wine rack and pressed his palm against it. A section of wall slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, we entered a room lined with surveillance monitors, stocked with emergency supplies, weapons, and air filtration systems. The panic room. Franco sealed the door behind us. "How long can we stay here?" I asked. "As long as necessary," Gabriel replied, scanning the monitors. His jaw tightened. "But I don't plan to hide while my people fight." "Your people are trained for this," I said. "You're more valuable alive than dead in some pointless shootout." He shot me a look. "Pointless. Strategic," I corrected. "You said it yourself, this is about loyalty and consequences. Getting yourself killed before you can deliver them would be pointless." Franco made a small sound, half amusement, half disbelief. "She has a point, boss." Gabriel ignored him, his attention fixed on the monitors on screen. The battle played out in black and white. Muzzle flashes, movement, chaos. The Albanians were coordinated, too well prepared. "They knew the layout," I said. "They knew where your guards would be." Gabriel's voice was lethal. "Silvio. He's not answering his phone. Neither is his second in command. Convenient timing." He turned to Franco. "Find him. I want to know where he was tonight." Franco nodded, already making calls in rapid Italian. 10 minutes later, the monitors showed the tide turning. Gabriel's men pushed forward, forcing the attackers to retreat. When the gunfire finally stopped, the property was a ruin of shattered glass and blood. But it still stood. Franco lowered his phone. "All clear. Perimeter secure. Ambulance en route for our wounded." Gabriel holstered his weapon. His expression unreadable. "The bodies. Being handled. Police have been notified it was an attempted robbery. They won't ask questions." Of course they wouldn't. Not here. Not in his world. We returned upstairs. The air reeked of smoke and cordite. Bullet holes scarred the walls. Blood pooled on the marble. Gabriel's men moved methodically, cleaning, documenting, erasing evidence. "Your room is untouched," Franco said to me quietly. "But perhaps you'd prefer different accommodations tonight." "She stays near me," Gabriel interrupted. "The master suite. Double the guards." I should have argued. Should have demanded independence. But the adrenaline had drained away, leaving only exhaustion. I nodded. Gabriel led me toward the opposite wing, past the chaos and smoke, into a space untouched by violence. The master suite was large, dark, and quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake, its surface rippling silver under the moonlight. There's a sitting room through there, he said, gesturing toward an adjoining door. The couch converts to a bed. You'll have privacy. Thank you. He stood at the window, his reflection merging with the night beyond outside. Dawn was beginning to rise, soft gold bleeding through gray clouds. We had survived the night, but I knew deep down it was only the beginning. The house smelled faintly of gunpowder and antiseptic. To be morning, the chaos had been scrubbed away, but the silence that replaced it was heavier. Gabriel's men moved through the hallways like ghosts, repairing, disinfecting, erasing. Outside, Lake Michigan was still, its surface glassy beneath the pale winter light. I hadn't slept. The adrenaline had long since burned off, leaving behind only exhaustion and questions. Natalie's journal lay open on the table in front of me. Its edges were smudged, pages creased, a fingerprint of her life before it was cut short. Each entry felt like a whisper from the grave: names, license plates, observations, notes written in rushed, uneven lines that grew shakier as the days passed. And then the last page: finished sentences. Silvio's been acting strange, taking calls he doesn't want overheard. Someone told him about the shipment. How did they know? Only Gabriel, Franco, and the ink trailed off there, blotted by what looked like a drop of water. Or maybe a tear. A chill crawled down my spine. You're awake early. I turned. Gabriel stood in the doorway, dressed in black slacks and a half-buttoned shirt, sleeves rolled up. There were faint shadows beneath his eyes, signs of a man who had not rested either. Couldn't sleep, I said. You. Sleep is a luxury I can't afford. He crossed the room, poured himself a coffee, and leaned against the counter watching me. Franco says you've been reading the journal all night. Find anything? I hesitated. Something about Silvio. She suspected he was meeting with the Albanians. Said he passed an envelope to one of them. Gabriel froze. His voice dropped. Silvio Moretti. I nodded. She wrote his name twice. Circled it. The coffee cup hit the counter with a sharp sound. I've known him 15 years. His tone was almost disbelief. He was there when my father died. He carried me through the war with the Caruso family. He stood beside me when I buried her. Maybe that's why she was scared to tell you, I said quietly. He looked up, eyes narrowing. She thought I wouldn't believe her. Would you have? He didn't answer. The silence was its own confession. He began to pace, the measured steps of a man fighting fury and betrayal at the same time. If Silvio betrayed me, he betrayed her. And if he betrayed her, he's the one who killed her. The words landed like thunder. I rose from my chair. We don't know that yet. We need proof. Proof, he repeated bitterly. Proof doesn't bring the dead back. Neither does vengeance, I countered. He stopped, turning sharply toward me. Don't tell me what vengeance does. I live in a world built on it. Everything I am, everything I've kept alive exists because of loyalty and the price of breaking it. His voice was low but trembling with anger. Yet beneath that I heard something raw: grief, guilt, something dangerously close to despair. You think killing Silvio will fix this? I asked. He stared at me for a long moment, then said, no, but it will balance the scales. I held his gaze. And what then? What happens after you've killed every man responsible? What will you be left with? He moved closer, too close. I could smell the coffee on his breath, the faint trace of gun oil on his skin. You really want to know? He asked softly. Nothing. That's the point. There's nothing left. She was everything. I swallowed hard. The air between us pulsed, thick with something unnamed. Then why keep fighting? I whispered. Why not let it end? His eyes locked on mine. Because she deserves justice. Because you're here. And because I don't know how to stop. The honesty in his voice broke something inside me. We stood there, inches apart, both too stubborn to step back. He lifted a hand, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His fingers hesitated just long enough for me to realize that this was wrong and that neither of us cared. You're not her, he said quietly. But sometimes I forget that. I'm not asking you to remember, I murmured. And then his mouth was on mine. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't polite. It was desperate. Two people drowning in the same grief, trying to breathe through each other. For one breathless moment, everything else vanished. The pain, the fear, the blood on his hands, and the guilt on mine. When he pulled away, his eyes searched mine, half apology, half defiance. That shouldn't have happened. No, I agreed softly. It shouldn't have. But neither of us moved outside. A low rumble echoed from the driveway engines. Too many engines. Gabriel's expression shifted instantly. He reached for the gun on the table. Franco. Report. Static crackled through the radio, followed by shouting in Italian. They're back. Multiple vehicles north side. Gabriel swore under his breath, grabbed his phone and barked orders in rapid succession. Seal the gates. I want all units on perimeter defense. Move. The house erupted in motion again, guards rushing through corridors, the thud of boots, the metallic click of rifles being loaded. Gabriel turned to me. Stay down. Don't leave this room unless I tell you. Like hell, I said. If this is Silvio, I'm not sitting here waiting to be shot. He gave me a look that was equal parts fury and admiration. You are impossible. Get used to it. The next explosion cut off whatever he was going to say. Glass shattered in the hallway, alarms blaring. Franco's voice came through the intercom, urgent, breathless. They're inside. They breached the east wing. Gabriel moved toward the door. Gun raised. I caught his arm. Be careful. He looked at me, the faintest trace of something human flickering through the storm in his eyes. Always. Then he was gone. The next few minutes blurred into chaos, gunfire, shouting, the distant roar of engines. I stayed low, heart pounding, clutching the journal like a talisman. When silence finally returned, it was deafening. Gabriel reappeared, clothes torn, blood on his sleeve but not his own. It's over. His voice was flat, calm, the calm of a man who'd been here too many times before. Was it them? I asked. He nodded. Albanians. But they knew the layout. They knew the codes. Someone on the inside, I said. Silvio. His tone left no room for doubt. He's gone. Left his phone, his car, his house. Everything. He looked at me, then really looked, and for the first time I saw the toll it had taken. The exhaustion. The guilt. The loneliness of a man who had built his empire on loyalty only to watch it rot from within. I stepped closer. We'll find him. We, he repeated. You said it yourself. Your resources, my skills. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're stubborn like her. Maybe. But unlike her, I don't scare easily. His hand brushed against mine, accidental, or maybe not. Neither of us pulled away through the broken window. Dawn was rising again over the lake, pink bleeding into gray. The world deceptively calm. Natalie's world, our world now, and somewhere out there, the man who had betrayed her was still breathing. Gabriel turned toward the horizon, his voice low, almost a vow. I'll find him. And when I do, I'll make sure he never betrays anyone again. For the first time I didn't argue. Because part of Medark, quiet and newly awake, wanted that too. The next 72 hours unfolded like a fever dream. Every hour brought new fragments, locations, phone records, movements, all pointing to one truth. Silvio Moretti had vanished. Gabriel worked without sleep. His world operated on speed dial, informants, safe houses, bribes disguised as donations. I watched from the periphery, half outsider, half ally, learning how efficiently a kingdom of shadows could mobilize when its king demanded blood. Franco brought updates every few hours. He wired $500,000 to an offshore account the morning before the attack, he said one night, placing a folder on the table. Destination Tirana. The Albanians. Gabriel flipped through the documents, his movements sharp, mechanical. He ran to them. He ran from you, I corrected softly. Gabriel's eyes flicked up. Not for long. We found him 2 nights later. A warehouse near the industrial dockshaft, abandoned. The kind of place people went to disappear or die. Silvio had been sloppy. Maybe he didn't think Gabriel would find him so fast. But Gabriel always found what belonged to him. He went in first, gun drawn, every step silent on the cracked concrete floor. I followed behind, pulse steady despite the danger. Franco's men sealed the exits, cutting off escape routes. Silvio stood near an old forklift. Hands raised. The second Gabriel's shadow fell across him. He looked smaller than I remembered, sweat-slicked, pale, unshaven. The loyalty that once defined him had evaporated, leaving only fear. Gabriel, please. He started, voice trembling. I didn't have a choice. They would have killed me. Gabriel's tone was glacial. You had a choice the moment you took my money and my trust. The moment you sold information that got Natalie killed. Silvio shook his head wildly. No, I never meant for her to die. It was supposed to be a message, that's all. I warned them not to touch her. You warned them, Gabriel repeated, a bitter laugh escaping him. And yet she's dead. I stepped forward. Who ordered it, Silvio? Who gave the final command? He glanced at me, eyes wide. Victor Castrati. The name hung in the air like a curse. Even Franco flinched. Victor, Gabriel said slowly, his voice dropping to something almost reverent with hate. Of course. Silvio nodded frantically. He's the one who controls the Albanian pipeline. I was supposed to feed him intel. He said it was just business. He said she was leverage. I didn't know they'd kill her, Gabriel, I swear. Gabriel closed the distance between them in 2 strides, the muzzle of his gun pressing against Silvio's forehead. You watched her die. And then you came to her funeral and shook my hand. I didn't know. Silvio sobbed. Please, I'll give you everything, files, routes, contacts. Just let me live. Please. The silence that followed was unbearable. I could see the war behind Gabriel's eyes. Rage demanded blood. Logic demanded restraint. That I took a step closer. Gabriel, wait. If we kill him now, all we have is closure. If we keep him alive, we have leverage. You want to keep this snake breathing? He snapped. Yes, I said evenly. Because he's terrified. Terrified men talk. And if Victor Castrati is really behind this, he's the one you want. Not Silvio. Gabriel's jaw clenched so hard I thought he might shatter his teeth. He stared at Silvio for several seconds, then lowered the gun just an inch. You talk, he said, his voice low and deadly, and you might walk out of here alive. You lie, and you'll wish they'd killed you first. Silvio nodded, gasping, relief flooding his face. Franco stepped forward with a recorder. Start talking, Moretti. Names, dates, locations. Everything. For the next hour, Silvio spilled everything: shipment ledgers, offshore accounts, contacts embedded in both organizations. Each word was another nail in Victor Castrati's coffin. When it was over, Gabriel stood silent, processing. The picture was clear. Victor had orchestrated everything. He'd wanted to cripple Gabriel's influence in Chicago, to use Natalie as a warning. And Silvio, the man Gabriel trusted most, had handed him the weapon. Gabriel turned to me, his voice quiet. He dies for this. You promised him. I promised nothing. Gabriel. He looked at me, and for a heartbeat the fury cracked, revealing something almost human beneath. What would you do, Lauren? If someone took your sister from you, what would you do? My answer came out before I could stop it. I'd destroy them. But I'd make sure it meant something. That seemed to reach him. His grip on the gun loosened slightly. I took a breath. We need Victor alive. Long enough to make sure he never does this again. You kill Silvio now, you lose your only chance to reach him. For a moment I thought he'd ignore me. Then finally he spoke. Fine. Franco blinked in surprise. Boss, let him live, Gabriel said. For now. Put him somewhere dark and deep. If he lies again, end it. Understood. Franco signaled 2 men, who dragged Silvio away, screaming his thanks like a man being carried to heaven instead of hell. When the door closed behind them, the silence returned thick and suffocating. Gabriel holstered his gun and walked to the far end of the warehouse. He leaned against a rusted pillar, breathing hard, the weight of betrayal settling over him like a shroud. He was my brother, he said softly. My brother in everything but blood. I stepped closer. Then don't make his mistake. Don't let your grief turn you into what he became. He laughed once bitterly. You sound like her. Maybe that's not a bad thing. For the first time in days, a faint smile ghosted across his face. It didn't last. We'll go after Victor, I said. But we'll do it smart. We'll build something he can't crawl out of. Gabriel's gaze sharpened. You think I don't already have a plan? I think your plans usually end with someone dead before you get what you need, I replied. He tilted his head slightly, assessing me again. Then help me design one that doesn't. The plan came together in fragments over the next 24 hours. Victor Castrati was not just a criminal, was an empire in a tailored suit, laundering his money through legitimate corporations. Taking him down required precision, not rage. Lauren's contacts, linguists, brokers, people who owed her favors from her translation work provided key intel. Gabriel's men handled the rest. Franco stood before the map that covered an entire wall of Gabriel's office. Red strings connected photos, addresses, names. Victor's private club. The Venetian. He'll be there tomorrow night. He never misses a Friday. Gabriel nodded. Then we'll pay him a visit. No violence unless necessary. We talk first. I raised an eyebrow. You? Talk first. He shot me a dark look. Don't push your luck, Lauren. Franco smirked but wisely said nothing that night. Gabriel prepared for war disguised as diplomacy. He dressed in black again. But this time it was deliberate armor of a different kind. As he adjusted his cufflinks, he glanced at me in the mirror. You don't have to come. I'm not staying behind. You'll be armed. I pulled the Glock 43 from my jacket, checked the magazine and slid it back into its holster. Always. He gave a small nod of approval. Good. If anything goes wrong, you get out first. Understand? I met his gaze in the reflection. Not without you. He turned then, and for a moment the unshakable Gabriel Donatelli looked uncertain. You shouldn't care what happens to me. I didn't say I did, I said softly. I said I'm not leaving without you. For a heartbeat, the silence between us carried everything neither of us was ready to admit. Franco interrupted from the hallway. Boss, the car's ready. Gabriel straightened his jacket, the emotion gone as quickly as it came. Let's end this. The drive to the Venetian was quiet. Rain tapped against the windows like nervous fingers. Somewhere in the distance, lightning split the sky. Beside me, Gabriel's expression was unreadable outside. The city blurred past streets and lights melting together like memory. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost too calm. When this is over, there's no going back. For either of us. I know. He glanced at me, then back out the window. Then let's finish what Natalie started. And in that moment I understood the unspoken truth between us. This wasn't just his war anymore, that it was ours. The rain had stopped by the time we reached the outskirts of the city. The streets glistened under the pale sodium glow, Chicago's skyline stretching like a crown of cold fire against the night. Our convoy of 3 black cars moved like a procession, quiet, deliberate, lethal. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Gun oil and ghosts. I sat beside Gabriel in the back seat. His posture was relaxed, but I knew better. Beneath that stillness was a coiled storm. He looked impossibly composed in black tactical gear, his expression unreadable except for the faint shadow of grief that never quite left his eyes. When this is over, he said quietly, there's no going back. For either of us. I know. He turned to me then, gaze sharp and dark as obsidian. Then let's finish what Natalie started. The warehouse loomed ahead, a black shape against the lighter horizon. 1 entrance, 2 exits, plenty of shadows, perfect for betrayal. Franco's voice came through the comms, low and steady. Everyone clear on the play? Confirm, Gabriel said. Static crackled as his men responded in turn. Then silence, the kind that hums just before a gunfight. We stepped out into the night. The cold bit through my jacket, but my hands were steady as I adjusted the Glock at my back. Victor Castrati's men waited by the entrance, 4 of them, all armed, all pretending they weren't terrified. The interior smelled of rust and old oil. A single work light hung from a chain, swaying slightly, throwing long, moving shadows across the floor. Silvio stood at the center of the room, hands visible, face pale but determined. The coward had returned, and somehow he still looked self-righteous. Gabriel, thank you for coming, he began, his tone rehearsed, trembling around the edges. Gabriel's reply was soft and terrifying. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now. Silvio's gaze darted toward me, then back. Because I can give you Victor Castrati. His location, his schedule, his vulnerabilities, everything you need to end this war before it destroys you. Gabriel's expression didn't change. And why would you do that? You've been working for him. I've been surviving, Silvio spat. They threatened my family. I gave them crumbs to keep them safe. But they went too far. I never wanted Natalie dead. That wasn't supposed to happen. Gabriel's voice dropped to something lethal. But it did. Because you gave them everything they needed to reach her. Silvio took a step back. They said they just wanted leverage. I swear, Gabriel, I didn't know. I could hear it in his voice. The guilt was real, but it didn't matter. Real guilt doesn't undo betrayal. Gabriel's hand flexed on the grip of his gun. You watched her die. Then you came to her funeral and lied to my face. Please. I can make it right. I'll give you Victor. His network. His contacts. But I walk away. I want protection, money, new identity. You get revenge, I get a life. Gabriel tilted his head, the faintest trace of amusement in his eyes. You're bargaining with the man you betrayed. Bold. Silvio swallowed hard. I'm offering you Victor on a silver platter. Take it or leave it. Decide fast. Me next check-in is in 8 minutes. If I don't report in, every file I have goes straight to the FBI. Every deal. Every name including yours. Franco cursed under his breath. Boss, he's not bluffing. He's wired. The room felt like a held breath about to break. Gabriel stepped forward, face inches from Silvio's. Show me proof. Silvio fumbled for his phone, tapped the screen and turned it toward us. A photo appeared. Victor Castrati entering a building earlier that day. The next image, his schedule, detailed and precise. I've been his inside man for a year. I know everything. Silvio's smile was grim. Take it or leave it. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He turned to me, his voice quieter but cutting through the tension like a blade. What would you do? It caught me off guard, the weight of his trust. I thought of Natalie. Of her journal. Of the way she died chasing truth instead of safety. She wouldn't have wanted another body on the floor. She would have wanted the man who ordered it. Take the deal, I said softly. Get Victor. Gabriel's eyes flicked to mine, searching, then he gave a slow nod. Fine. His voice was steel. You walk. But if you're lying, Silvio, I will find you. And what happens after that will make you wish you died here tonight. Silvio trembled but managed to nod. Understood. What followed was 30 minutes of information: names, meeting spots, security details. Victor's penthouse, his guards, his escape routes. Silvio gave it all away in a desperate rush, spilling secrets that would end empires. When he was done, Gabriel turned to Franco. Let him go. Full surveillance. If he contacts the Albanians, end him. Silvio's relief was almost pitiful. He glanced at me as he backed toward the exit. For what it's worth, Miss Cooper, your sister was brave. Braver than I was. I'm sorry. Then he was gone. Gabriel didn't move for a long time. His hands were steady, but I could feel the tremor in the air around him, the kind that comes from holding back something dangerous. We're going after Victor tomorrow night, he said finally. And when we find him, I'm going to make sure he knows exactly why he's dying. I met his gaze. Good. Because I want to be there when you do. The next day passed in fragments: preparations, briefings, weapons checks. Gabriel's men moved like a well-oiled machine. Franco handled logistics. I monitored communications, memorizing blueprints and entry points. Victor's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a luxury tower downtown. Private elevators, biometric locks, 12 armed guards, and an ego big enough to fill the city skyline. Franco laid it out on the digital display. You'll stay in the command vehicle, Miss Cooper. Monitor feeds. Coordinate extraction if needed. You're not going inside. We'll see, I said. He frowned. Don't do anything reckless. Gabriel appeared in the doorway, dressed in full tactical gear, black on black, like vengeance made flesh. Lauren, a word. He led me to an empty room and closed the door. The air between us felt charged, like the moments before a storm. I need you to promise me something, he said, stepping closer. If things go wrong tonight, if I don't make it out, don't say it. I have to. If I don't make it, Franco has instructions. Money, protection, everything you need to disappear. I shook my head. No. You don't get to give up before the fight even starts. His hand came up, covering mine. Just survive, Lauren. His voice softened, breaking through the armor. These past days with you, they reminded me what it feels like to want something beyond revenge. My throat tightened. Gabriel, he cut me off, his gaze steady, raw. Natalie loved me, but she never understood this life. You do. You understand the darkness because you carry it too. I wanted to look away but couldn't. We barely know each other. That's not true, he said, his forehead brushing mine. You're not her shadow, Lauren. You're your own light, sharper, colder, more dangerous. And it terrifies me how much I want that. I kissed him before I could stop myself. It was fierce, desperate, alive. A confession of everything we couldn't say out loud. When we broke apart, we were both breathless. Come back alive, I whispered. That's the plan. He smiled faintly. Then the strategist returned. Victor dies tonight. For Natalie. 6 hours later, the operation began from the command vehicle. I watched on multiple screens as Gabriel's team infiltrated the building. Ghosts in black, precise and silent. The first guards fell quietly. Cameras went dark. Alarms stayed silent. Then chaos. Gunfire. Shouts. Static through the earpiece. Taking heavy fire. Victor's in the wind heading for his private elevator. Franco barked orders into the radio. Block it. Don't let him reach the garage. But I could see the feeds. Gabriel's team was pinned. The escape route was clear. Victor would be gone in less than a minute. Franco, I said. Which exit leads to the garage? He turned to me sharply. Why? Lauren, no. Tell me. Service entrance, east side, but I was already moving. I grabbed a spare earpiece and weapon, slipping into the night before anyone could stop me. The service entrance was dim, echoing with the hum of machinery and the faint smell of oil. I could hear voices ahead, Albanian, fast and guttural. Rounding the corner, I saw them. 3 men, 2 SUVs. Victor stood between them, impeccably dressed even now. His expression calm and cold. My father's voice whispered from memory. When outnumbered, create chaos. I raised my gun and fired twice into the air. The echo was deafening. They froze. Then everything erupted. Bullets slammed into concrete as I dove for cover behind a steel pillar. FBI. Buildings surrounded. I shouted, gambling on fear. One guard advanced. I waited until he stepped into the open, then fired. The bullet caught his shoulder. He fell screaming. More gunfire. And then a new sound. Gabriel's voice through my earpiece. Lauren? Where are you? Before I could answer, he burst through the entrance with his men. Gunfire filled the garage, echoing like thunder. The Albanians went down fast, outmatched and outnumbered. Victor tried to run. Gabriel caught him. He slammed the man to the ground, fury erupting after weeks of restraint. You killed her. Gabriel's voice cracked with rage. Say it. Victor spat blood. The Cooper woman? She was collateral. Meant to hurt you. Gabriel pressed the gun to his temple. Her name was Natalie. And she was worth 10 of you. I grabbed his arm. Gabriel, stop. Not like this. Make him answer for it properly. Turn him over to your contacts. Let him rot in a cell where his own people can find him. His finger tightened on the trigger. For one terrible moment I thought he'd do it. Then he exhaled slowly and lowered the weapon. Franco. Take him. Get him buried somewhere he'll never see daylight again. Franco nodded, already calling it in. Gabriel turned to me, eyes dark and burning. You could have died. I made a choice. Not you. His voice broke. I can't lose someone else. Not again. You didn't. I'm here. He pulled me into his arms, holding on as if to anchor himself to reality. Don't do that again. Don't make me choose between revenge and keeping you safe. I nodded. Okay. I promise. We stood there, surrounded by the remnants of war. Smoke curling into the air. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Franco's voice cut through the haze. Boss, we need to move. Police will be here in 10. Gabriel took my hand. Lauren rides with me. The drive back was silent. His hand found mine in the darkness, trembling not from fear, but from the weight of everything we'd survived. Back at the house, the world seemed suspended between destruction and relief. Gabriel removed his weapons one by one until only the man remained, the one who'd lost a fiancé, a brother, and maybe found something like redemption in the wreckage. He turned to me, voice low. I should never have brought you into this. Should have put you on the first plane back to Prague. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Our eyes met. There was no war left in him now, only truth. Because you're the first person who understands. Who knows what it's like to lose someone and want vengeance more than breath. Who doesn't flinch at what I am. And what are you, Gabriel? I asked softly. He smiled sadly. A monster who loved an angel. Who watched her die because I couldn't protect her. Who sees her face every time I look at you, and knows I'm failing her all over again. The pain in his voice shattered something inside me. I crossed the room before I realized I'd moved. I'm not her, I whispered. I'll never be her. But I'm here. And I'm not leaving until we find who killed my sister. He reached up, fingers brushing my jaw. You look so much like her. Same face, same eyes. But when you move, When you speak, you're completely different. It's like watching a familiar melody played in a different key. I felt the air tremble between us again. I know I shouldn't touch you, shouldn't feel this, he said, voice breaking. But standing here, knowing I almost lost you tonight. His thumb traced my lower lip. Tell me to stop. I should have. But I couldn't. I can't. I whispered that he kissed me, then slow at first, then deeper, desperate. Every touch was a confession, every breath an apology. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. That was a mistake, I said. Probably. But I don't regret it. He searched my eyes. You're brave. Smart. You loved your sister enough to walk into danger for her. And when I thought those bullets might reach you, I was more terrified than I've been since she died. I smiled faintly through the exhaustion. This is grief, Gabriel. Two broken people clinging to each other. Maybe. His voice was a whisper. Or maybe it's two people finding something real in the middle of hell. He pulled back, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. Get some rest. We'll talk about Silvio when you wake up. Where are you going? To deal with the aftermath. To make sure my men are cared for. And to start hunting the bastard who betrayed us. He paused in the doorway. And when I find him, I'll make sure he regrets every breath he took after selling out Natalie. He left before I could answer, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. That I stood there alone, the taste of him still on my lips, my heart caught between guilt and something far more dangerous outside. The lake shimmered under the dying moonlight, calm, endless, indifferent. Somewhere in that vast reflection of darkness, I realized something terrifying and true. I was falling for the man who'd loved my sister first. 9 months later, Chicago felt like a different city. The winter that once pressed down like grief had thawed into spring, and for the first time in years, the lake outside the Donatelli estate shimmered with something close to peace. Inside, the house no longer smelled of gunpowder and blood. It smelled of coffee, of life returning, of soft laughter echoing down marble halls that had once only known silence. I stood on the balcony, sunlight warming my face. The air carried the scent of lilacs from the garden below. I in my arms. A small bundle shifted inside, a heartbeat, soft and fragile, reminding me that not everything born from pain has to stay broken. Her name was Natalie. Gabriel had chosen it. When he first said it aloud, I saw something flicker behind his eyes, pain, love, redemption all at once. She deserves to be remembered for more than how she died. He told me quietly. She should live on in what we build next. And so she did. The baby stirred, her tiny hand grasping the edge of my shirt, as if holding on to a world she didn't yet understand. Behind me, footsteps approached. I didn't need to turn. I knew the rhythm, steady, purposeful, always measured. Gabriel. He stepped beside me, dressed simply for once, no armor, no darkness, just a man with lines of fatigue etched into his face and warmth in his eyes. She's finally asleep? He asked, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Barely, I smiled. She fights it like her father. He chuckled, the sound low and genuine. She gets that from you. For a long moment we stood in silence, watching the sunlight ripple across the lake. Franco says the Castrati network has fallen apart, I said quietly. Victor's death left a void no one wants to fill. Gabriel nodded. Good. Let them destroy themselves trying. I'm done with that world. Are you? He looked at me, then really looked. Yes. For the first time, I want something that doesn't bleed when I touch it. His hand brushed against mine, tentative, reverent. That I smiled faintly. That's a start. Inside the house, the dining room had been transformed, where once business deals and vengeance were planned. There were flowers, laughter, and the smell of fresh bread. Franco sat at the table, cradling a glass of wine like an old soldier, allowed finally to rest. Boss, she looks just like you, he said, grinning as we entered. God help us all when she grows up. Gabriel smirked. She's already got your stubbornness, Franco. We'll need divine intervention. Franco chuckled, shaking his head. You've changed, Gabriel. Used to be you'd kill a man for smiling in your house. Now look at you, domesticated. Careful, Gabriel warned, but his eyes were light with amusement. I can still fire you. You'd miss me, Franco said. Not a chance. We all laughed. For the first time it felt real that evening. After Franco left and the baby had fallen asleep again, Gabriel and I sat by the lake. The sky bled orange and gold into the water, a mirror of endings and beginnings intertwined. He handed me a small box. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a feather, delicate and luminous. It was hers, he said softly. Natalie's. She wore it the night she died. I kept it because I couldn't let go. But it doesn't belong to me anymore. My throat tightened. Gabriel, I can't. You can, he interrupted gently. You're the reason her story didn't end in darkness. You gave her peace. And you gave me a second chance. I looked down at the pendant, the way the fading light caught on its edges. And what will you do with yours? He exhaled slowly. I'll rebuild. Not the business, the man. The one she saw before the blood and the fear. The one you keep trying to convince me still exists. He does, I said. I see him every day. He smiled faintly, a shadow of the man he used to be. You saved me, Lauren. I don't think I ever thanked you for that. You didn't have to, I said quietly. You already did. He looked at me for a long moment, then reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. You know, I used to think redemption was something people like me didn't deserve. And now I think maybe it's something you earn one choice at a time. I leaned into his touch. That's all it ever was. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and the whisper of waves against stone behind us. The baby stirred softly in her cradle by the window, as if sensing that the past was finally at rest. Gabriel's voice was low, almost a vow. For her, I'll make this world better. For Natalie. For you. I turned to him. And for yourself. He smiled, truly smiled, and for the first time, I saw the man Natalie must have fallen in love with. Not the crime lord, not the avenger, but the human beneath the scars. We sat together until the sky darkened completely, our reflections merging with the night. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the ghosts of our past were finally silent, and as the first stars blinked awake over Lake Michigan, I realized something I hadn't since that day at the funeral. Grief doesn't fade. It transforms. It becomes love. It becomes legacy. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough to survive it, it becomes redemption. Which moment in this story made your heartacre believe in love again? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more passionate, emotional stories from Desire Tales.